Welcome back to the Sword and Sorcery Immortal Souls demonstration. This will be the final part of our demonstration, given this is a prototype version. I don't want to take it too far. I'm going to leave some stuff as a surprise, and also, although I think the rulebook's looking pretty solid now as it goes, but let me just wrap up by showing you some of the other concepts that I like here. It's Icarus's turn, so he's going to move in as 3 movements, and obviously we're going to stop here and have a crack at this gremlin. We're going to use our power, Shield Mastery, perform an extra attack with these shields, and it inflicts on Lightning Strike and Knockout. Now remember our night effect. So this goes to 2, meaning it's going to take a little longer to cool down. And we're going to use our long sword, which gives us 2 red dice, has a range of 0. And look out for these lightning bolts. So our first attack is 2 red dice. What have we got here? 2 hits. Now remember, we lose one of these because of the night effects, and it leaves us with 1 hit, but we've just made a slash attack, and these gremlins reduce the hit counts by 1 with the slash attack. So that sword was never going to get through and do any damage, alright, because of the darkness and because of this this armour, this spiky armour these gremlins have. So we could use our shield instead. Alright, so this is where we use our power. So this time, this is a blunt attack, 1 red, 1 blue. This time we got a lightning bolt. And this means the enemy's KO'd. KO'd means he's knocked out. So he lies down, and he can't do anything, he doesn't count for anything until he's reactivated, and when he's reactivated all he'll do is stand back up. Alright, so that's knocking out an enemy. Let me show you something else though. Let's assume you don't have to engage in combat. Let's assume we did something else. Let's assume we wanted to move on by. Right, we've got a movement of 3. 1, 2, 3. So I could move down here, but first you have to evade the enemy that's sitting in here. And what that means is that he gets a reaction attack. Alright, so he just attacks you as you pass. Now, if you're dominating the area, you have at least twice as many figures as the enemy, then you don't have to suffer this reaction attack. The enemy is distracted by the other members of your group. So, in fact, we could have just passed on through and had KO'd this thing instead. Now the enemy's turn. Let's see what happens. It says an elite assault. Activate all red enemies. We don't have any, they're all blue. Otherwise, all engaged enemies perform an attack with their primary weapon. Okay, so that means he's KO'd and not engaged, so he's not going to activate. This one's engaged with his weapon, 2 red, bite and claws. Now this is dangerous. Let's see what happens. They've got 1, 2, 3 hits. Remember, Lagon's armour's cancelled out, so it's 1 blue die from this effect. Yeah, we didn't get anything. We got 1 defence. We got 1 defence because we rolled a lightning bolt. Studded armour protects us from 1 hit, so that's 2 damage. Now this is a problem because Lagon has only got 2 health left. So death follows. But in Sword and Sorcery this doesn't mean we're out of the game. Instead, Lagon takes on his ghost form. You would lose a soul rank, but to a minimum of 1, so every time you do die it does slow your progress. And you also lose any, or you drop any items. With Lagon in ghost form now though, what that means is he's effectively not in play, all enemies ignore him, and he can only act using his ghost soul activities. And Lagon's specific ghost soul activity is Soul Shout. Look at one shadow, ignoring doors. If it's a standard enemy, discard it, otherwise put it back unrevealed on the map. The other thing is that Lagon can still move on his turn, so he can still move around, and we can get to have a little peek at this when we're using his special ability. And the other thing you can do is take a recall action, and with the recall action you can move directly to the God's Shrine, it's God's altar, and from there you can resurrect by spending soul points. And the number of soul points you need to be resurrected is equal to your soul rank. And you earn soul points by defeating enemies. So if we kill this gremlin, for example, we look at his card, and we can see that he will give you 1 soul point. Okay, so that's 1 soul point you can use to resurrect, or it's soul points that you can use towards leveling up. So Icarus here can help resurrect Lagon by defeating my enemy, gaining a soul point. All these soul points are in a kind of a shared pool amongst the whole team. Remember, they're all aligned together via soul nature. Using soul points to gain soul ranks pretty easy. To get up to level 2 you need 2 times 2, you need 4 soul points. To get up to level 3 you need 3 times 3, 9 soul points. To level 4, 4 times 4, 16. Okay, so it's whatever soul rank multiplied by itself. And that's got to be your aim, especially while you're at soul rank 1. As you can see, leveling up means you get better powers. For example, Lagon here has this companion, a wolf who can act on your behalf, and Sally can be activated using one of these powers. There you go, it's called the Summon Sally, and at level 2, soul rank 2, activates Sally and Summon Sally, okay, as well as all the other powers. The other things that you'll be looking out for are upgraded weapons. The most powerful weapons are the soul weapons. I don't have any here to show you. They come out in specific quests. But you've also got your stash, the stuff that you can pick up. And then each weapon has a forged side, which is kind of like an upgraded side. This is going to cost you 50 gold. And you can do this when you visit the Emporium before starting a quest. At the Emporium Anvil, it says here, the cost of 50 gold, flip 1 weapon or armour to its forged side. There's also the Wizard Stone. This allows you to either replace one of your powers with a new one, or recharge artifacts that you find. Artifacts have charges, you can only use them a limited number of times. So you can see there's lots of depth going on here. A couple of other things I wanted to show you before we wrap up. This is a spawn point, this is where new enemies may come into effect. And then finally, if we head down here to where this next story event is, then you read and apply the effects described in the storybook. So what happens here is very much dependent on the scenario. In this opening tutorial mission, if you like, then we're at the gates of the city, which is alight from the fires of a gremlin attack. And we're going to find that we need to head to a cathedral, and we're going to encounter some humans along the way. As we wrap up our turn, we move into the event phase once more. Now remember, we've already had an event, so all you do is place that one on the bottom. That's all you do, and the next turn we'll flip the next event. So these things happen every other turn. We move into the next turn, our powers will cool down, and we'll head on with our adventure. Now the aim here is probably now for Icarus to kill one of these gremlins to get the soul point to resurrect Lagon, and then push on through. Okay, so you can see that this is very much, you start off really weak, and you are going to develop and build up your character into this heroic beast that's going to be taking on more and more complex scenarios, like an RPG. So that's Sword and Sorcery. There's a lot of depth to this game. They've paid a lot of attention to, kind of like a miniatures game in a way, that, you know, paying attention to the terrain, line of sight rules, encumbrance, its treatment of, you know, flying enemies, and how areas are accessible or not accessible. There's a lot going on here, a very lot going on here. The rulebook's quite thick, there's a lot to take in, but it's really well laid out, really well structured. It's easy to get up and running. You can kind of learn the game as you play, because as you level up, more things become more important, and you can use the rulebooks as reference for all the different effects that are going on. And there's a lot of information on the cards too. So this is kind of a step up from Galaxy Defenders, obviously in our fantasy setting. Very much prototype right now, but do look out for it. It's going to be a beauty.